Hello friends, this video on Biomolecules part 12 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Now we'll talk about polysaccharides. So we have told that polysaccharides has large number of monosaccharides that are joined by glycosidic linkages. There are a lot of glycosidic linkages, hundreds and thousands of glycosidic linkages and hundreds and thousands of monosaccharides joined together. For example, if you see here, this is a long chain. It continues. More and more monosaccharides are joined together by these glycosidic linkages. It's a long chain. Hundreds and thousands of monosaccharides are joined together. Right? And they are the most common carbohydrates in nature. Please note, they are the most common carbohydrates in nature. And they generally act as food storage or structural material. Please note, they are basically either food storage or structural material. We'll talk about various polysaccharides and this will be more clearer to you. So here the main is the starch and cellulose and glycogen. So we'll talk about these three polysaccharides. These are all polysaccharides: starch, cellulose and glycogen. And once we study these, then you will understand why polysaccharides are generally for food storage and structural material. So let's talk about starch. Starch is the main storage polysaccharide for plants. So for the plants, this is starch is used for storage. Correct? And they are found, and they are most important dietary source for human eat them, actually eat them in this fashion. For the diet perspective also, they are the most important source of diet, and they are found in cereals, they are found in vegetables, they are found in corns, rice, starch, they are found in all these, right? So it consists of actually two things. One is amylose and amylopectin. Actually, there are two different types of, you can say, starch. So amylose is water soluble. So amylose, if you see, this is my amylose and this is my amylopectin. Correct? So this is my water soluble. This is my water soluble. And amylopectin is not soluble, water insoluble. Correct? And this is only 15 to 20%, I think, in the nature, 15 to 20% by weight. And this is the remaining one, that is 80 to 85% by weight. So the starch, there are two types, amylose and amylopectin. The amylose, if you see, is linear and helical. But amylopectin, if you see, is the branched one. Correct? And if we talk about the pure starch, this is white, tasteless, odorless powder. This is the pure starch, is white, tasteless and odorless. And this is insoluble in cold water, but soluble in warm water. Correct? So if you dissolve the starch in warm water, it will give you a white paste that is sometimes used in cooking for thickening agent, and also it is applied in some garments to make it stiffen. The cotton garments, the cotton kurta which you wear, the white kurta generally, to stiffen it, or the saris, the cotton sari. There also this is used for stiffening before ironing, and this is also used to make adhesives. Adhesives. Starch is used extensively to make adhesives for cloth hardening or cloth stiffening before ironing is one uses, and also for thickening your food in cooking. For example, you are making a soup, you want to thicken it, you can use the starch to make it thick, the tomato soup. Correct? And this starch word is derived from the English word Starchen, that means stiffen. This word is derived from starchen, that means stiffen in English. And if you talk about this amylose, it's a long unbranched chain. There is no branching, it's a long unbranched chain with 200, 300, 1000. So good number of alpha D plus glucose. If you see, there's all alpha D plus glucose. They are held together by C1C4 bonding. C1C4, if you see, C1C4, they have this glycosidic linkage. Right? They are all alpha D glucose. They are just bonded by C1C4 glycosidic linkage. If you talk about amylopectin, it is a branched one. If you see, there's a branch here. Right? So here this part is similar to amylose. If you see, there is C1C4 linkage, C1C4 linkage, but there is also C1C6 linkage. This is carbon, right? There is also C1C6 linkage. And this creates branch. So if you see, this is one, but this branch, you see this branch is, right, this branch, these are all C1C6 linkage. The one which I put in dot. The other one are all C1C4 linkage. See, these branches which it created, it's all because of C1C6 linkage. Hope you are trying to understand what I'm trying to say. These are all straight C1C4 linkage, straight, these are all, if you see, these are all C1C4, 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 C1C4. But this point, if you see, is C1C6. C1C6. And again here, these are all C1C4, C1C4. Right? If you come straight, all C1C4, the moment you talk about branch, it is C1C6 linkage. So they have some branches, and that's why it is little water insoluble. They're pretty heavy. So once again, starch, there are two types actually you can say, or two components. There is two types. One is amylose, one is amylopectin. These are almost 15 to 20% by weight, and this is almost 80 to 85% weight. Two different types. This is straight helical chain, only C1C4, C1C4 linkage, all alpha D glucose. Here, this is all alpha D glucose, C1C4 linkage, and this part is also, you see, alpha D glucose, C1C4 linkage. But between these, there is C1C6 linkage. So here also, if you see, here this is C1C6, C1C6, C1C6 linkage. But these part, if you see, are all C1C4, C1C4 linkage. Correct? The next is cellulose. So they occur exclusively in plants, only in plants. So as I have told, cellulose occurs exclusively in plants, and they are the most abundant organic substance in the plant kingdom. Please note, they occur exclusively in plant only. Let me write here. Plant only in plant, and they are the most abundant organic substance in the plant kingdom, and they are the major constituent of cell wall of the plant cells. We'll talk about this. And it is the most abundant organic polymer on the earth. In the whole earth, this is the most abundant organic polymer. If you see, for example, cotton, it has 90% cellulose. Wood has almost 50% cellulose. So if you see this cellulose, this is nothing but a straight chain polysaccharide which consists of beta D glucose units, and they are joined by again glycosidic linkage between C1 of one glucose and C4 of the next glucose unit. For example, if you see, this is how it looks. This is, let's suppose, my C1, 2, 3, 4, C4, and this is C1, right? So if you see, this is a link between C4 and C1, and there's a long chain. For example, if you see the long chain, these are all my beta D glucose. This is a beta D glucose, they're all linked. This is the structure. Correct. And as I told, they are major constituents of cell wall of plant cell. This is my cell of plant. This is my plant cell actually. So the cell wall of this is made up of cellulose. Correct. And as I told, in cotton we have 90% cellulose, in wood we have 40 to 50% cellulose. It's also used to prepare paper. So it is used to prepare paper, and it is found in cotton and wood. In cotton almost 90%, wood almost 50%. Right? So humans actually, they can't digest the cellulose. It is used as dietary fiber. But some animals, they can digest this cellulose. Correct? Animals can digest the cellulose, but for human, they can't digest it, but it is used as dietary fiber to improve digestion. This was discovered by French chemist in 1838, and it was isolated from plant, right? So, and they don't have any taste, they don't have any odor, they are hydrophilic and they are water insoluble, and they can easily be converted to glucose by treating it with concentrated acid at a higher temperature. So if you take the cellulose and you treat this with concentrated acid in high temperature, you can easily get glucose out of it. Why? Because it's all glucose. If you see, all glucose there. A lot of glucose combined to form cellulose. Now let's talk about glycogen. Glycogen generally is in animals. So if you see, glycogen is a multi-branch polysaccharide that serves as energy storage in animal and fungi. This is the structure of glycogen. And if you see, the structure is almost similar to amylopectin. You've just seen, as part of starch, we have amylopectin. So this structure is similar to amylopectin. You see, these are all C1C4 linkage. These are all C1C4 linkage here. You see C1C4, C1C4 like that. But here you have a linkage between C1 and C6. Right? So carbohydrates in animals are stored as glycogen. So if you see, glycogen are nothing but, so if you store carbohydrates in animal, call it glycogen. Correct? So it is the secondary storage. The primary storage is generally fat, right? So fat is the primary storage, and then we have glycogen. Correct? For energy, fat is the first storage, because if the body needs energy, first it will break the fat into energy, and if it doesn't have enough fat, then it will break the glycogen into energy. So this is present in the liver, muscles and the brain. So when body needs glucose, the enzymes break glycogen to glucose. Correct? It's also found in, as I told, animals, yeast and fungi. So it is similar to starch. See, so what we have, starch, when you talk about starch, we talk about plant. When you talk about glycogen, we talk about animals. That is the major difference. If you see the structure, but also glycogen is almost similar to starch, amylopectin, right? And since it's all about animals, it's also called animal starch. Also called animal starch. Correct? So its structure is similar to amylopectin, but it is more branched. It is more branched actually. So you want to see the structure, this is more branched. As compared to amylopectin, this is more branched. Now let's compare all these three polysaccharides which we have learned: starch, cellulose and glycogen. So if you see, starch is more about plant, cellulose is in the plant cells, glycogen is more in animal. The structure, if you see, almost same, it's a little more branched. You see this part also is all same, right? They all glucose linked together, C1C4, and these are all C1C4, and this branch is C1C6. Here also all the C1C4, 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 and this branch is C1C6. Correct? This is starch and glycogen. Glucose is a little different. So here, cellulose is a little different. Here it is C1 and C4. Correct? So if you see, all these three are made of glucose. It's all the bonding difference, right? So if you see, this is more in the plant cell wall. So it's called cellulose cell wall. I think that's how the name came. Not very sure on this. This is glycogen, mostly in animals, also called animal Animal starch, also called animal starch. Why? Because it's almost similar to starch, but the only difference is it is an animal and it is more branched. Now let's thank you. Visit examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online tests, get free study materials, find tutors and mentors, and much more. Thanks once again.